Hey guys, Joshua Laycock here. So, I want to pick up where I left off yesterday talking about vision. And as a recap, I mentioned about the value of a vision pulls you forward. And one of the things that I remember reading is that your mind needs to be somewhere. Your mind doesn't really do a very good job of being in the present. It naturally gravitates towards somewhere with familiarity, and your mind associates itself with emotion. And that's why, if we don't create a compelling vision for our future that triggers an emotional response within us, that it naturally gravitates towards the past. And that's not very helpful. So, what I learned, or the first time that I started to think about this, was when I was asked, what kind of man do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? And maybe in this day and age, that's not such a radical question, but I think it can be. Our whole lives, we've been asked, what do you want to be, right? What job do you want to have? What profession do you want to have? We've had a lot of experience associating life with various outcomes: house, money, job, spouse, kids, family. Those are outcomes. And not only do they generally act as pretty bad motivators, they also are fleeting. What happens when you achieve those things? What happens when you get the job? What happens when you get the salary? What happens when you meet the person or you have the kids? Are you done? Do you no longer have a purpose? So someone asked me, like I said, what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of man do you want to be? And I didn't have a really good answer. Like, a good man? A good person? I don't know. What does that mean? And they challenged me with, sit down and write your eulogy. Write your eulogy. Pick someone in your life. Maybe that person already is in your life. Maybe it's not someone that's in your life. Maybe it's someone that isn't there yet. But sit down and write it. And that was the first time that I'd ever contemplated my own mortality, my own death. And more importantly, it was the first time that I'd ever contemplated, what will the world think of me? What will the people around me think of me? What kind of mark will I leave on those people in terms of who I was? And it was a really powerful experience. And the first time I wrote it, it was shallow. Oh, he was a very successful person. He was a philanthropist. He was, kind and blah, blah, blah. And it was okay. It was a good start. Not to be critical, but it was a good start. And I just kept doing it. I kept refining it. And it was actually, I didn't know who was going to stand up and talk at my funeral for the longest time. I didn't have anyone in mind to stand there and reflect back on my life. Until, of course, I had my son. And when I tried that exercise again, my son was months old at the time, I worked through it, and I was able to write the eulogy from the perspective of my son looking back on a life with his father, and what were the things that he would say about me. And it wasn't perfect. He talked about, in this eulogy that I wrote, that I was curious, and that I was kind, but that I still had a bit of a temper and that I could be frustrated, but that I was always working at it. That I was always the kind of person that if you had a problem, you could go to and have a conversation with him about, and he would help you work through it. Not always giving advice, but listening and asking questions. And that I was naturally the kind of person who people flocked to for that. That I was always willing to lend a hand. That I was a very, very dedicated husband. And that I, at the very least, tried really hard to live the values that mattered to me each and every day. Kindness and integrity, calm, respectful of others. And I ended up writing like 6 or 7 pages of what kind of a man my son would be able to tell the world that I was. And as I said, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't some idolized version of a father. It was someone with some challenges and some, character flaws, because I do. But it was the first time that I really started to reflect on that kind of a mark that I might have on my family and on the people around me. And it formed the basis of what would ultimately become my future vision. So the first step in developing an effective and a workable vision, for it to be the kind of tool that works for you like it did for me and does for me, is to answer the question, or start to explore the answer to the question of what kind of a person do you want to become? At the end of your day, where have you progressed in your life, in your journey of becoming that kind of a person? And a really powerful tool is writing your own eulogy. So I would challenge you to do that. It was, like I said, it's tough. It's morbid a little bit. Stoics often reflect on their mortality for a variety of reasons, but I think it's an effective tool. And when done correctly, will form a really excellent foundation for going forward. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today, is the question of what kind of a person do you want to be? Not what do you want to be when you grow up, if we ever grow up, but what kind of a person do you want to be? Do others see you as, and do you see yourself as? And then write your eulogy, and write it and rewrite it, and focus on who's going to stand up for you and talk about you when you're gone. And what would you like the people around you to say and to feel about the person who lived that life? So it shouldn't be a dark exercise. It should be exciting for you. Don't be afraid if that person at the end is nothing like the person that you are today. That's okay. That's why we're on this journey. I certainly was not the kind of person that my son was standing up and talking about. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer every day. Have a fantastic evening. It's Friday night. I hope you enjoy a wonderful weekend. We're having a big Christmas party tomorrow, so tomorrow's video is going to be interesting. I will talk to you then. Good night.